Hey mates, how are we doing today? It is Saturday, June 26th, 2021. I'm actually over at the Hobart Urban Nature Preserve, based in the town of Troy. So this is another park that you can find in Troy. And what's neat about this particular preserve is, it's really close to the heart of the city, and as you can see, we're kind of looking at a combination of wetland as well as prairie. So without further ado, the focus of this video is going to be on a particular plant known as the common milkweed. Right here, you got this guy. So this is another species that falls under the genus of Asclepias. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Don't quote on me. But this is the common milkweed. So when most people hear the word milkweed, this is usually the plant that is most associated with that term, even though there are quite a few separate species of milkweed. But this is, you could say, the most, common and popular. However, what's fascinating though in this case is it's known as a fugitive species. And they call it a fugitive species just based on the fact that they do not compete with other native vegetation in the area. They pretty much just go wherever conditions are suitable for the plant. So most times they enjoy, being in roadside ditches, disturbed habitats, or even open, old fields that were once used. So in this case, we're actually seeing a rarity, because it's not very often that, common milkweed are found in prairies. Because in prairies, of course, you have several other plants that have to compete for each other in terms of water and even sunlight. So the first thing you might be thinking is, why exactly is it called milkweed? Well, a common distinguishing factor has to do with what is within the plant, in terms of its veins on the leaf here. So it should be no harm for the plant to take one off. Okay? So if you actually look inside, you see that white stuff there? That is the actual milk sap that the plant produces. And because of this substance, that is how the plant is given the name milkweed. Because it's technically one of the only plants that really does something like this. And what's fascinating too is milkweed contains something called glycosides. That's the chemical group. And the thing is, you don't want to consume these at all. They're actually quite toxic, unsafe, unless, of course, if you boil the milkweed. Yeah, you want to have to boil it before eating it at all. But it has been found that milkweed can help combat particular problems such as, particular heart diseases. So actually it could provide medicinal benefit. But that's not the only thing either. The common milkweed is actually the host plant for the well-known, you may have guessed it, the monarch butterfly. One of the most associated butterflies that we oftentimes think of. Well, if we did not have any common milkweed, we would not have our monarch butterflies. They rely on these plants for nesting, as well as even part of their diet. So as I was mentioning, that milky sap that I was discussing, that is what they eat. Like, that is their specialized diet. That is how they survive, you know, when they are caterpillars. However, though, it's still slightly early, though, to really see the caterpillars. You'll start really seeing them as it approaches into, per se, July or even early August. So it's still slightly early. But yeah, the more common milkweed you have, the more monarch butterflies you'll have. Unfortunately, monarch butterflies have really been facing a huge decline. And that's just due to pesticide use that's been lurking in our air. And unfortunately, it has really caused a drastic impact on such populations. So I guess just the first thing to say is, you know, reduce your use of pesticides, all right? Or else we really won't have our monarchs anymore, because they can't handle those types of chemicals. I mean, even we really can't either, you know. We can only be exposed to it for so long before we start having symptoms. But as I was saying earlier, you don't want to eat these when they're raw, because just as a matter of fact, you might experience symptoms of vomiting, diarrhea, or even loss of coordination. So it's quite drastic, too, what it can do to your health if you were to try eating this in its raw form. So that's why you always want to boil it first. But yeah, these are good to have. Very important. So alrighty. Thought I would share that with you guys. I hope you learned something out of the common milkweed. You know, it's quite neat that we're actually seeing them in a prairie. You know, that just doesn't really happen too often. So I'm gonna, of course, share an article regarding the common milkweed that tells you a bit further. But yeah, like when I did my video on the butterfly weed, it looks very similar. However, though, these actually produce that milky sap that I was talking about. So I hope all of you get to enjoy your Saturday, and Journey on a Journey is outwards. Take care, folks.